The tool DialogEditor is an aid for the design of the user interface and the specification of dialogue. It's based primarily on the concept of ObjectsBox and is called Toolkit. The developer has the choice between creating his own objects, using existing interactive objects, or doing both. It's important to determine which attributes, methods, and events are necessary in dialog script. According to Cameleon architecture, the editor proposes 3 levels: abstract, concrete, finalize. At the abstract level, there is no representation at all. It's a purely theoretical level. This level describes potential user interfaces independently of any interaction modality and any implementation technology. An abstract user interface abstracts a concrete user interface into a user interface definition that's independent of any modality of interaction. For example, graphical interaction, vocal interaction, speech synthesis and recognition, video-based interaction, virtual, augmented, or mixed reality. To illustrate some cases, we used an abstract model proposed by User Interface Extensible Markup Language project known as UziXML. At the concrete level, we need to fix the context of use and interaction modalities. This level describes a potential user interface after a particular interaction modality has been selected. For example, graphical, vocal, multimodal. A concrete user interface concretizes an abstract user interface for a given context of use into concrete interaction objects so as to define widgets layout and interface navigation. It abstracts a final user interface into a user interface definition that is independent of any computing platform. Although a concrete user interface makes explicit the final look and feel of a final user interface, it's still a mock-up that runs only within a particular environment. At the finalize level, we fix implementation technology. If it's graphical, which graphical programming language should be used? Which graphical toolbox should be used? If it's voice, which voice language is to be used? With which grammar? With which vocabulary? And which model? The final user interface is reached when the code of a user interface is produced from the previous levels. This code could be either interpreted or compiled. Here we choose to produce code in Visual Basic 6, VB6, Visual Basic for Application, VBA, Hypertext Markup Language, HTML, HTML for Application, HTA, and Visual Basic.NET, VB.NET. What is really interesting is that the tool proposes a mechanism to pass from one level to another, and this mechanism is known as interface mapping. Before continuing, let's recall that the dialog editor is based primarily on the concept of ObjectsBox, the developer having the choice between creating his own objects, using existing interactive objects, or doing both. It's important to determine which attributes, methods, and events are necessary in dialog script. The dialog editor gives freedom concerning the level of specification. The user can choose to specify his project at the abstract, concrete, or final level. The dialog editor generates the user interface at final level according to the platform toolkit. The resulting executable proposes architecture with 3 layers: the user interface, which offers all interaction possibilities; the functional machine, which contains semantic services and pilots database accesses; and the dialog controller, which pilots exchanges between the first 2 layers. The dialog editor provides reification and concretization functionalities. Indeed, the user could, for example, use the same abstract specification to provide 2 or several different concrete specifications. In the same way, it could start from a concrete specification to lead to another concrete specification by skews of the mappings. And the dialog editor manages dialog scripts traceability. It's constantly possible to know who did what, which day, and at what time, and also, if necessary, it's possible to cancel recent modifications or simply to revert to or resume an old version of a given project.